Isang magandang araw po sa lahat ng ating kasama sa ika-4 na araw ng 59th UP National Writers Workshop. Kahapon po ay ibinahagi sa ating extension lecture ang digmaan para sa paggatha ng wasto at makabuluhang kwento ng ating mundo. Sa pinakabuod ng pagkatao, naroon ang pagnanais na maging tapat at matapat at laging dumulo sa isang wastong pagwawakas. Magagawa ito sa tulong ng saliksik, sa pagiging malay at sensitibo sa himig ng kinabibilangang komunidad at sa palagiang mga tangkang magpuna at magpuna sa sarili. Ngayong araw ay ipagpapatuloy natin ang bahaginan sa mga malikhaing akda ng ating workshop fellows. Asahang mapapanood at mapapakinggan ang pagsasala sa labat ng pantasya, relasyon, pagkababae, at paghahanap ng puwang sa iba't ibang mapa para sa araw na ito. Ayan po, ngayon ay uumpisahan na natin ang unang workshop. Ngayon po ay nasa session 7 na po tayo. Ang unang session ay A Mythical Collection, isang fiction in English. Ang ating manunulat po ay si Binibining Raisa Falgi, at si Professor Charleston Ong naman ang kanyang magiging moderator. Gaya ng mga nakarang araw na sesyon, magsisimula po ang ating session sa maiksing pagtalakay ng moderator, 15 minutes po para dyan, tungkol sa manunulat at sa mga akda, na susundan din naman ng 15 minutes na pagbabahagi ng manunulat. Itutuloy ang sesyon sa bukas na talakayan mula sa mga kasama sa panel, at 45 minutes po ang nakalaan para dyan. Paalala po sa ating mga kasama na ipapabatid sa ating chat box ang natitirang oras para sa talakayan. Maglalaan din tayo ng ilang minuto sa dulo ng session para sa ilang tanong o komento na makukuha ng ating staff mula sa live feed ng workshop. Ngayon po ay tinatawagan ko po si Sir Charleston Ong.
Gandang umaga. So today we will discuss yung trabaho ni Raisa Falgi. Raisa was my student many moons ago sa creative writing class. And at that time, if memory serves, she was working on her novel, The Woman in the Frame, which has since been published. So ngayon ay balak niyang gumawa ng collection ng mga mito, mga contemporary myths. So we go back to basics, no? Myth making. So the function, the most basic original function of the writer or the artist in society as storyteller. Laging sinasabi na first, tell a good story. So ang allegory dito, ang metaphor dito ay lagi yung yarn, no? Spinning a yarn, yung sinulid, o yung maghabi, no? Yung sapot. One of my favorite books noon na nawala na couldn't find it, was a book called Caught in the Web, na isang collection ng mga postmodern reinventions of traditional fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood. Tapos yung imperial messages ng mga modern day parables. Now, yung of course, storytelling has always been with us, no? To be human is to be able to tell and share stories, no? Around the campfire, in the darkness, Homo sapien needed someone to name things, tell stories, provide meanings. So laging yung so in the beginning was the word. Now Netflix. Pero lagi nandyan yung storytelling. And most of our great books are collections of stories. The Judeo-Christian Bible, the Homeric sagas, yung Iliad, Odyssey, attributed to Homer, probably maraming sources at kaya maraming versions. No? Ang myths ay laging maraming version. In 1700s, na-publish sa English yung 1001 Arabian Nights. Again, these are folklore from Asia, West Asia, Africa, source from Arabic, Persian, Turkic, Hindi. No? So marami siyang versions, pero laging may frame. No? May hari, no? Siya Arir, at yung wife, no? Si Scheherazade, no? Scheherazade. Siya ay yung first wife niya ay unfaithful. No? So nagalit siya, pinatay niya. At sabi niya, pare-pareho yung mga babae. No? They're all unfaithful. So ang ginawa niya, every morning, every day, mag-asawa siya ng isang virgin. And then papatayin niya before sunrise. So hanggang sa naubusan ng virgin. Kaya yung si Scheherazade, yung daughter ng vizier, ay na-volunteer. Ang ginawa ni Scheherazade is that gabi-gabi, magkukwento siya. Magkukwento siya sa hari. Pero binibiti niya, no? May cliffhanger para hindi siya patayin. No? Next day, kwento siya ulit. So, walang consumatum est, no? Laging hanggang sa umabot ng 1,000 days. So, by the time of si Scheherazade bilang storyteller ay hindi na siya pantas, no? Hindi na siya oracle or prophet. No? Hawak siya ng hari. Siya ay entertainer. Naging entertainer na yung storyteller. Pero, power siya. Dahil hindi siya mapatay ng hari. No? At subversive. May subversion na because yung mga napapaikutan niya yung hari at yung mga kwento niya ay pwedeng critical, no? Pwede niyang punahin yung hari kasi allegorical, no? So pwedeng may critique, no? Yung hari. At madalas tungkol siya sa mga folk, no? Yung bandits, thieves, no? I'm sure we know versions of this, no? All of us, yung Alibaba, For You Thieves. So tungkol siya sa Harafish, no? Sa Arabic, yung mga folk. At nagkaroon ng power, no? As critic yung story. At so may tradition rin ito, no? Sa many cultures. Sa East Asia, China, you have the Journey to the West. No? It's, one of the 4 classics, no? Classic novels of Chinese literature. Journey to the West was written in the 16th century during the Ming Dynasty by an author. During those days, they mga pseudonym yan, no? So they protect themselves. But it's based on the memoirs of the Tang Dynasty monk, no? Si Xuanzang, around 629, who went to West Asia and India to obtain Buddhist sutras, no? To translate into Chinese. So but then, so it's based on his memoirs. But the author, the 16th century author, so pinasukan na niya ng maraming folklore, no? Yung sa kwento niya, because it's romanticized. So iba-ibang folklore. So just like Tolkien, on the journey may mga monsters, demons, no? Arhats. So si Buddha, binigyan siya ng 3 protector, no? The monkey, no? Kaya the monkey, naging monkey king yan sa ibang iterations. The celestial pig, no? And then may isa pa. And then yung kanyang kabayo ay dating prince, no? So these are they serve as protectors to atone for their sins, no? Kanilang mga past incarnations to attain enlightenment. So it's actually a comic. It's a comic novel, no? Picaresque, parang Don Quixote. It's also a satire of the Chinese bureaucracy, no, of the day. For instance, itong si Pig, in the past incarnation sa isang general or marshal na matakaw, na babaero, no, hindi ginagawa yung trabaho, maraming kasalanan. So ngayon siya ay naging baboy, no, celestial pig. Yung monkey ay rebelde, no, or mayabang, may hubris, no, kaya nagyan siya meron siyang metal ring. No? So pag nagdasal yung monk, siya ay tatalo. So these are iterations, no? Maraming version across Asia, Southeast Asia. I'm sure you've seen versions of the Monkey King and all that. So laging nare-reinvent yan. And then of course yung Dickens, no? One of our literary masters who also attained nagkaroon siya ng mass following, mass appeal, si Dickens. No? Mahaba yung mga nobela niya. Even like in Japan, si Tanizaki. No? But it's kasi serialized, no? In the old days. Kabanata naman yan, no? So kaya novel, laging bago. And then he would, nung wala pa masyadong publication and people aren't so literate, people actually gathered in taverns, no, to listen to the new chapter. So pinapakinggan nila yan. No? May nagbabasa for the next, and then they will wait for the next chapter, no, pag meron na. So maring it's like spinning a yarn, no? Pwedeng ma-influensyahan ng public kung ano yung susunod na kabanata, parang teleserye. So humahaba, no? Humahaba hanggang So marami tayong storytelling traditions. We have yung indigenous, no? Diba? Sa katutubo, which yung oral. And then we have in Spanish period, you have the awit, the corrido, and then during the American period, you have the stories of Edgar Allan Poe, Faulkner, Anderson, the well-made story, you know, which was the first stories that our writers in English mastered, the form. And often sinasabi na si Paz Marquez Benitez wrote our first short story in English, the first masterful short story in English, yung Dead Stars. Of course, yung novel, may issue dito na kasi nga yung Dickens, yung mga ganun, kabanata yan lagi, no? And sa atin meron din, no? Yung sa Liwayway, sa Manawag, yung may wakasan, may tuluyan. No? Pero wala sa English. And I think that my suspicion lang, no, is one of the reasons why hindi gumaganap o naging malakas ang novel writing in English because hindi serialized. No? Short story lang talaga ang na-focus. So anyway, ibang. So now we have this again, storytelling tradition. Nauso na ngayon yung children, writing for children, in the last decades. And then the YA, young adult. Sa writing for children, actually, yung mga magulang pa ang bumibili ng libro. No? Actually, become one of the more lucrative markets. But sa YA, you're really writing for the buyer, no? The young adult. Of course, with the success of all the YA, yung genre, no? Tolkien, kasi ginawang movies, no? Tolkien and Game of Thrones, and then Harry Potter, of course, and the Hunger Games. So maraming interest dito. And then, of course, may iba, and I see a lot of these mga estudiantes, they want to introduce yung mga local elements, local color. Bakit hindi gawing, if Rowling can use ito mga mythologies of medieval literature of England, we can use our own. So it's possible, but then again, ang aking tanong dyan ay, what responsibilities do you owe the original sources, source material or source cultures? For instance, they'll write in English, so goddess. Yung paggabi ng goddess, is that equivalent to diwata, which is yung indigenous term? Is the diwata similar to goddess, or iba yung concept? And then may concern dito like tungkol sa virginity ni Anagolay. May ganong concern rin ba sa mga non-Christian or non-Islamic communities? And the use of the heart, basically as a symbol for romantic love or as a seat of consciousness. That's probably also galing sa labas yan. So in all these reinventions, the repurposing of tales for present usage, our usage, ano yung responsibilities to the representation of original sources? So yun, those are just my concerns about the issue. And so now, I think, pwede natin pakinggan si Raisa Falgi. Okay. Raisa?
Okay, thank you, Sir Charlson. And actually, what I was working on when I was in your class at first was one of the stories in my recently published sci-fi collection. I'll show you the cover of later. Okay, I have the slides. Okay, so what I write, how and why, storyteller perpetually caught in a web. And that is me in one of my favorite writing spots last year in UP. So this is one of my favorite books. And in his introduction to his folktale collection, The Unbroken Web, Richard Adams imagines the world as being surrounded by a web of story. He writes, "Within this outer web we live. It soaks up, transmutes, and is charged with human experience, exuded from the world within, like steam or an aroma from cooking food. The storyteller is he who reaches up, grabs that part of the web, which happens to be above his head at the moment, and draws it down. It is, of course, elastic and unbreakable to touch the earth." So writers are, of course, storytellers. And while we often pride ourselves in having created our stories ourselves, it's a truth universally acknowledged that there are no entirely original stories. And there are certain stories, because of their age and overuse, that we can pretty much tell as a whole in our own words, and often with our own twist. I have loved folk tales and takeoffs on them from childhood, and it's no wonder that much of my work draws from the stories I've loved, whether I intend it or not. For much of my work, I feel I did not choose to write the story, but the story chose me and made me set it down. For one thing, I am a very busy mother, and it's hard for me to find time to write unless something seizes me. As a person given to flights of fancy, all too often I drift high, all the way up to the unbroken web. Sometimes I'm reaching for it, groping for a story to write. More often not, I just happen to fly up to it and get caught in a piece of story, or even intersections of it. For the first story, The opening line, "The goddess of lost things quit when she became a mother," came to me on a day when I had to look for a number of things my children had misplaced. Eventually, the story came to me when I decided to find out if a Nagolay, early Filipino goddess of lost things, really had children. The little information I could find brought up many questions, and I sought to answer them with my own version of the story of how the Tagalog goddess of lovers came to be. The second story came to me as I was reading an article on a coming solar eclipse. Okay, so I'm also very into science, why I write science fiction. And included in the article were various folk stories about heavenly bodies and eclipses, and I saw correspondences in some of these, which resulted in a conversation on their differing cultural traditions. Okay, but also, I would like to add around this time, I also heard a scientific theory on the creation of life on Earth from this channel my kids watch, Da Vinci Science Channel. Okay, and it said that the moon caused tides which made the water splash onto the land, make tide pools. Okay, and the sun's radioactive rays mutated cells within the tide pools, which became the first one-celled life forms. So in other words, the sun and moon, although we normally think of them as occupying separate spheres, but when it comes to the theory of creation, the sun and moon both work together to create life. And I love how it suggests the equal roles of the sun and moon, okay, in creation of life, and thus the equality of the male and female. I think that also made its way in the story, or I hope to highlight it more. And there's also other things like, my frustration with the Madame Butterfly story in Miss Saigon, where the song Sun and Moon is. So I wanted to subvert that, though I'm not sure how successful this. By the way, in the Alaskan story, there's an interesting reversal because the sun is female, whereas, and Malina, that's her name, and the moon is her brother. So they have an opposite idea of which sex is associated with each heavenly body. So the final story in this suite is on a more generic figure of legend, the mermaid. The voice of the mermaid first-person narrator is very similar to that of A Mermaiden Story by Maria Elena Paterno. Not surprising, as my story grew out of an essay I wrote as college freshman, extending the speech of Paterno's mermaid. I take it in a different direction, however, making reference to environmental issues. Okay. And I was also inspired somewhat by The Last Man, although I've never finished reading it, by Mary Shelley. But the theme and how, okay, this is from TV again, where it was reviewed on a special about her life, how it connected it to her loneliness after her husband had died. Well, she had a stillborn child. Her mother, everyone she was close to had died. Okay, so I think I was tapping into that poignancy also. That fear being the last. Okay, the fear and responsibility. Okay, fear of loneliness and responsibility. Okay. Well, life, varied experiences, trivia, and current events all blend in what I write, but these are just small flies that stick in the piece of web of actual human experience that I'm caught in, whether it's factual, like women's accomplishments failing to be acknowledged, working alongside men, the situation in which my novel, Woman in a Frame, was based, or fanciful, like the many folk stories that have variations throughout the world. So I also have a story there in alternative element. Okay, so I have to acknowledge Nick Joaquin, whose pop stories for groovy kids were my main inspiration, shown earlier, for writing folktale adaptations. I also owe a love of history partly to him, so it's not surprising my stories have similar elements. But of course, my experiences as a woman and a member of a younger technology-steeped generation come into play as well. I'm also a person of very wide experiences, having traveled to numerous countries, worked at countless good and bad jobs, perhaps because of the broadness of my experience of life that various stories stick to me and demand I write them down. There are certain similarities in vocabulary, values, and imagery you might see in my work, but overall I can't be said to write in a single voice. The voice of each narrative is determined by point of view and setting. Nothing could be further from the main body of my work than my contemporary young adult novel, If You Want to Be Happy. Yet the female protagonist, who in many ways is the younger me, says this: we are fairy and leprechaun. We are also Romeo and Juliet, and Aladdin and Jasmine without the magic carpet lamp. There are two people who feel we are meant to be together, yet can see no way to stay together. Be together physically in the future. It's set in the real world, but there's that underlying element of myth, and I like to put in something magical to connect with romance. Okay, in this case, this is an installation in California where the story was set. Okay, I felt I just had to use it after I saw the pictures in the LA Times. Okay. Which I subscribed to the free edition to help me with the story setting. So come to think of it, June Cruz Reyes noted, I Sir June, in the Ateneo National Writers Workshop that my contemporary short story In the Dark Zone made obvious references to the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, using the cave as a metaphor for the development and end of a relationship. I was not aware of this during the writing, but I was familiar with the frustratingly tragic myth. Okay, my mom actually had me watch Black Orpheus with her. I was about 10 or 11 and was traumatized by the ending. Okay, I knew it was no coincidence that it had led to the development of this story. And I realized after this analysis that all the stories I'd heard, read, and lived came together in me to create new stories, sometimes beyond my control. Given that I had proved most successful in this instance and my next major prize-winning story, Virtual Center, which had simply grown out of a dream, I'd learned to trust my subconscious as much as possible, being very cautious and judicious about editing with my conscious mind. It is much like the case when taking an exam you prepared for very well. The first answer that comes to mind is usually the right one, even if you can't explain why. So I prepare for developing an idea into a story by immersing myself in related material. Okay, so this is the Virtual Center. The collection is in, the story rather is in that collection published by Penguin. Okay, and I also have a story that has references to myth there. Okay, it's the Visayan goddess Halia, or rather an alien who pretends she's the Visayan goddess Halia. So if I immerse myself with enough varied works, the resulting narrative ends up only taking very little from each source and comes out a distinct creation rather than an imitation of one particular thing. I find I need to steep myself in a variety of material before I can determine all that I want the story to be. I let serendipity lead me frequently, so often when doing research, one learns other interesting things besides what one intended to find out. I try to incorporate these into my story when appropriate. Thus it grows organically. I fell in the Ateneus Writers Workshop again. complained the story of mine was too tight, and that was a long time ago. I didn't understand what she meant until we read her long rambling and but fascinating jumble of poem. Came to realize I needed to let the story choose its direction to some extent. Writing slavishly according to a plan, an outline, sucks so much life out of the story because life is messy. And while we impose order when mirroring life in fiction, too much restriction will take away belief from verisimilitude. So even if I have a clear structure in mind, an outline, set of rules, and a theme I wish to impose, I push all these to the back of my mind as I write. These give me a direction, goals, but not a clearly defined path. The story as it grows creates its own path. Ultimately, I trust the story to lead me, and changing any element of it from how it initially flows takes some serious reflections. And on the Darna school visit, I was asked to explain how I got my ideas. I basically said they came from things I experienced, observed, and read. And the MC latched onto the last statement to deliver the children a message, which I approve of, to read, read, read. But apart from that, in order to write, I feel I have to live. That is to immerse myself in experiences that make me feel alive, exploring new places, immersing myself in the arts, sharing books and knowledge. The purpose, after all, of latching onto the unbroken web is to share a cross-section of human experience. And I believe these bits of the web draw me to them because they know that I will understand and be able to transmit the elements they contain. Thank you.
Okay, so we can go to the floor. Kung sino ang may mga tanong para kay Raisa. Rona, where are you?
Miss Christine po is raising her
Christine.
hand.
Hi, thank you, Sir Charleston.
Okay.
Thank you, Raisa, for the presentation. Yes, thank you, Raisa, for the presentation. I learned something more about your work because of the presentation. It was here where I heard you say that subverting old narratives is an objective that you have, an aim. And I was glad you clarified that. And my comments will come from there. That said, I also think that Sir Charleston raised an interesting and important point, which is what do we owe the old tales, no? And I use the term old tales very deliberately. Your pieces reminded me of an excellent essay that Ma'am Jing Hidalgo wrote, I think, and published in 2008, New Tales for Old. And that was an offshoot of an even earlier essay on the tale, no? The tale used by Filipino women writers to subvert the patriarchal narrative. What really interested me about that essay is that it studies all these stories within a wide range of years by Filipino women writers, some of whom I think we know, no? We both know very intimately. And the question Ma'am Jing had was, why is the tale, diba? Why are these retellings the form with which women writers in the Philippines and elsewhere have used for this act of subverting? And what I remember is that she drew from Marina Warner, who said that the tales were an inherently feminine genre, but not simply because they were tales, but or retellings, but because in these tales that she had looked, these modern tales, the characters seem to always seize control over their own lives, and the retellings are often, if not always, meta narratives. Okay, a story about storytelling, and this time from a woman's perspective. So that was my framework. That was the lens I used in viewing your work. because I thought to myself, is this a valid lens? I wasn't sure if these retellings were trying to do that, because as you explained, your retellings are very ano tawag doon? Psychological. They are psychological reinterpretations given your subconscious reinterpretations. With subversion, though, I think there may be there is an element of sociality there that Ma'am Jing's essay emphasized. That when we subvert narratives, we move not just from the subconscious and personal, but also account for the old tales patriarchy, the old tales effect on women and men. I found really interesting your point that you were concerned about representations of men and women being equal. I really like that point. I think that patriarchy is often conceived of as being bad for women, but the depiction of how patriarchy also impacts on men, how masculinity exacts a toll on men and makes it harder for them to feel intimacy, for example. Yun. Those are things that I've not seen in fiction, and I'm glad that it seems like this is your ambition. But to do that, I think, and it's hard to do that, I think perhaps requires some sort of depiction of the sociality, the patriarchy that is inherent in the old tales that are being retold. But I do think that you do have that sense, and there's a desire to do that. For example, just one more example. I'm sorry to take up so much time, but I really am interested in the stories. The tale of Anagulay, for example, I see here in the story of the child, no, the goddess of love, taking control of her life, seizing control over her life. I do see the patriarchy that is in the old tale or depicted as such in the tale being retold. However, because of the use of the point of view of Anagulay, this becomes a mother-daughter narrative almost. And that I feel detracted from the subversive potential of the which was actually accomplished by the daughter, the goddess of love. So things like that. I don't know. I don't know how do you account for the patriarchy inherent in old tales? Maybe that's my question. Dami sinabi, no? Pero yun lang yung question. Because I think nandun yung susi sa mga tales. I think that is what binds the tales together. Okay. Thank you, Raisa. Congratulations.
So,
Thank you.
would like to answer, Raisa, or wait for other issues to?
Well, since we already talked about this before, I'll just answer quickly the last one, because I had already been thinking about it from the last time we discussed it. And one thing is that I cannot place, because in the exact subculture that these gods and goddesses came from, that is Anagolay herself. And we know that there are different Philippine subcultures. And for instance, in the Cordilleras, it's simply accepted when they reach a certain age, the girls move out of the home, and it's not their parents' business if they sleep with the boys who visit them, as long as they have guards in there, as long as they're not promiscuous, and if they get pregnant, it's believed, it's a sign they have to marry the guy. So there are different the approach, the indigenous beliefs about these things, as Sir Charlson said, they're not really the same as what we have from the Christian, once the Christianity was introduced, okay, and even the Muslim view of it. Okay, so that's why it's okay, although my source, it's so hard for me to find anything about it. That's the problem. And my source says it's Tagalog, but I'm not really certain about that or where exactly. Okay, because the Muslims also, they have place value in virginity. So it makes a difference what the source culture, precise source culture and influences are.
Okay.
Thank you.
See, any other points that you'd like to raise? So, partly na answer. Siguro, ang importante yung source material talaga. And so, it entails a lot of research, writing YA, writing these things. Ano pa?
Yes.
Yung mga ibang YA writers or writers of tales, si Jing. Baka meron kang gustong sabihin.
Sir Charleston, may nakapila po sa ating
Sino ba?
fellow.
Ikaw na hindi ko kasi
Tapos
nakikita.
si Emmanuel Dumlao po.
Okay, sige.
Next po si Sir.
So, Glenn.
Okay na po. Okay. I think I want to latch on to what Sir Charleston noted, and ang ganda ng framing na responsibility, to the old tale, as Tin termed it, I'm so wary of that. For instance, when I was reading the thing, very powerful, very provocative, especially the first one, I thought. Pero nung nabanggit nga yung heart, medyo na-jar talaga ako. Kasi, in many indigenous cultures, the heart is not like the center in the way that in the Western tradition it is. Parang mas liver yata or something yung like the of consciousness. So I'm wondering if and Raisa kind of gave us a hint of how that came to be. Yung nga, kasi parang if you immerse yourself in various sources, parang may ganun ng, I'm not sure if we can describe it as danger, or siguro my question is, short of being sort of purist about, you can only move around this sort of indigenous worldview, parang to what extent can we really draw inspiration and sources and stuff from other worldviews without that irresponsibility that Sir Charleston kind of hinted at, kasi parang may medyo pastiche like yung apparatus or the animating impetus of some of the tales, and pastiche is it's an apparatus of parang may overlap siya with, for instance, globalization, which is connected to ideology and historically connected to colonization, etc. So, if colonization effaced or tried to efface indigenous cultures, is there a danger of sort of replicating that process when we sort of haphazardly or arbitrarily borrow or take stuff from other cultures to sort of converse with or interplay with like consciously indigenous stories.
Si Eman muna siguro. Or gusto mong sagutin? Okay. Si Eman muna.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sasagot pa muna.
Gusto mo bang sumagot muna o si Eman?
Go ahead, Eman.
Okay, salamat. Nung nanggaling ako sa Mindanao, nakakwentuhan ko yung isang delian o baylan ng mga Tiduray. Sa kanila, kapag spiritual na yung pinag-uusapan, nagiging highly metaphorical, yung kanilang lengguwahe, at minsan kinakanta pa nila. Yung sa conversation nila, kinakanta na nila yon. Ito yung naramdaman ko sa mga kwento ni Raisa. Unang basa ko pa lang, parang iniangat niya na ako dun sa binabanggit niyang web, parang dambuhalang sapot. Pero at the same time, nakaugat pa rin ako sa lupa dahil ipinapaalala niya sa paggamit niya ng Anagolay, halimbawa, Dian Masalanta, at saka yung mga common na folk stories natin, halimbawa, si Labangan sa mga Tinggian ay inimbita nila kabunyan sa langit para lutasin yung problema ng mga tribo doon. Magiging judge siya ng contest sa pagpana. Napakagandang mga paglangkap yon doon sa mga kwento ni Raisa, no? Sa sarili nating mga mito, baka ito pwede i-consider ni Raisa, kahit sa ibang bansa, laging mayroong isang batas na namamayani doon sa lugar. At usually yung batas na yon ay batas ng lalaki. Halimbawa, batas ni Yahweh sa kwento ni Adan at ni Eva, batas ng mga bathala, mga lalaking Diyos sa kwento ni Tuglibong, batas ni Tuglay sa kwento ni Mabuyan. No? Kapag nailagay doon sa kontekstong may namamayaning batas, natural uusad yung kwento dahil may lalabag. Hindi ko alam ang laging lumalabag ay babae. Si Eva, si Mabuyan, si Tuglibong, no? Sana mailangkap, no? Maisama ni Raisa sa kanyang mga kwento yung ganong kompleksidad ng mga kwento, no, sa mga mito. Tapos yung binabanggit na paggamit ng goddess halimbawa at ng puso, naging problema yan halimbawa dito sa translation ng epikong Berinaryo ng mga Teduray, highly Christianized. Halimbawa yung mga lundaan ng ibig lamang namang sabihin ay may likha o mga diwata, itinranslate na Lourdes. Usually, yung lundaan na yun si Fulu-Fulu, walang kasarian at walang muka. Pero dun sa translation, naging babae na siya, tapos Lourdes pa yung tawag. So may mga ganong konsiderasyon. Panghuli dun sa The Last of the Mermaids, para ang ganda-ganda ng sermon ng persona doon para sa mga tao. Pero para sa akin, nasira doon sa concluding line. Mahina yung concluding line. Kasi parang alam na ng mga tao yon, no? Hindi ko alam, no? Baka mas sa isang gasgas na halimbawa, baka hindi nyo alam ang sinisira nyo na o ang pinagkakaitan nyo ng hininga yung inyong kaluluwa. Hindi ko alam kung humihinga ang kaluluwa. Pero sana may dating na ganon kalakas. Maraming salamat.
Yung ano, si Roland, di ba? Si Roland ba yung ano?
Yes
Nakapila.
po, Sir Roland po.
So, well, pwede rin naman kasi ma-read yung mga stories as part of a young, not just young adult, pero it's also speculative fiction. I mean, for adults, parang nung binabasa ko, it speculates a kind of alternative world na klase. Pero dahil ang arching connectivity ng mga stories ay yung idea of myth, no? Then one should also realize the function of myth. Ibig sabihin ay you're also presenting a newer kind of value system. That has to be clear to you as an author, no? Kasi nga ang myth, the agenda of a kind of collection about na may item on myth is worlding, no? To make it believable, itong details, itong world na to, itong substantiation of the world in the various stories, no? So, kailangan talaga ay malinaw sa iyo what value system are you proposing in this myth making of yours, no? Otherwise, it will yung din ang medyo cautionary tale is a mining of indigenous narratives and stories sa kind of take-off point ng myth mo. I don't think there has to be that kind of fidelity na klase otherwise it just become local color. Ibig sabihin, kung di naman siya sinubstantiate dun sa myth na sa kwento, then it's just topical. It has to be integrated well into the story for it not to be like attack on local color flavor dito. So more than just choosing yung mga myths na isasama mo dito, it's the idea, what are you reworking the myths for? No? ano yung function, ano yung value system na pinopropose mo in your collection, in your world of this world of myths, no? Otherwise, myth siya kasi meron siyang, it can go to a higher level of symbols eh. Kaya siya nagiging myth, it defies itong normality of the everyday. So may meaning siya, may symbol siyang pinapahiwatig, which is really the function of myth. And those symbols are embedded on the value system that is being proposed. So parang kailangan mo nang tahiin yung sa ganung klaseng flow in order for the project to be realized na klase. No? So parang medyo ingat din tayo sa pag-harness ng lalo na ng indigenous myth kasi nga it might run contrary to the value system that produce those myths sa various peoples na indigenous peoples na nanggaling itong myths na ito.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So, is there anyone else?
Yes
Si
po,
June.
Sir June. Are you trying to speak?
Yung sa akin, Raisa, ang gusto kong, yung kasing retelling, laging bago yan eh. Lahat kaya pagka yung mga ethnographer, kung 4 na tao yung i-interview niyan, 4 na klaseng version ng iisang myth ang makukuha. So largely, ang gusto kong itanong sa dulo, what is yours? Aanin namin itong mga mito mo. Ano yung take mo rito? Yung sa retelling kasi, yung version mo yun eh. Hindi ko alam kung aware ka kay Eduardo Galeano, yung Peruvian writer. Yung kanyang nakakatarantang 3 o 4 na volumes ito eh. 3 yung nabasa ko, yung Ring of Fire. Halimbawa, ano yung mga myth ng Latin America, paano niya binuhay. Tapos yung history, si Magellan nga ando doon eh, na hindi naman yung nakatala na nabasa natin. Tala ito ni Galeano. So in the end, yung mga scholars na taranta, ano ba yung ginawa ni Galeano? Literature ba to? Anthropology ba to? History ba to? So ang conclusion, dahil sa husay ng pagre-retell ni Galeano, ang conclusion lang ay literature ito na ibang klase. Kaya lang napakataas na pamantayan yon. Sa Pilipinas, marami pang pwedeng i-retell kung magre-research ka. Yung UP, yung may 4 na volume sa Panay, epic, na yung paborito ikwento ni Neil Garcia to lagi eh. Yung bulbul na kulay ginto na tinatangay na sa sapa. Ang daming maikukwento doon. Kahit na yung Lord Tiki na sang-ayon sa isang historian pero hindi ito pwedeng i-quote dahil nung i-counter check ko nawawala yung page. Sabi niya ibang version. Si Lord Tiki daw ay mythical god na gumawa ng unang babae at unang lalaki. So hindi siya tao. Yung titi, yung sa tiki at yung kiki ay sa ano. Ibig sabihin ang daming pwedeng paglaruan eh. Yung Davao Dongon din eh. Yung kaluluwa nagtatago sa baboy, sa atay, para hindi siya mapatay ng kalaban. Tapos yung wife niya, tinutulungan siya maghanap ng lover. Yung parang material mo, yung mga ganun eh. Tapos, medyo inaapura ko, kaya naghahalo-halo na, no? Sa Maori, sa New Zealand, meron silang alamat doon na kung bakit nagkalayo yung langit at lupa. Kasi yung mga anak hindi makakita ng araw, nasa pagitan, lagi magkapatong yung langit at lupa. Ang langit nila ay si Rangi. Langit. So, kamag-anak. Ito naman yung version natin ng yung bakit tumaas yung mga buwan at saka yung mga araw. Ibig sabihin, yung pag nag-retail ka, siguro maganda yung lumayo-layo na tayo sa safe side. Total, yung retailing mo naman, yung isa nga dito, nagsasuggest pa ng incest eh. So, di, i-dare mo na kami. Sabihin, kung gusto mo ng yung young adult mo o pangkwento, parang erotic ang pambata, di gawin mo na. Total gusto mo namang gawin. And maybe, pagka-aware ka na doon sa ano talaga yung gustong puntahan ng retelling mo, siguro mas makakabuo ka ng makapal-kapal na koleksyon at maraming koleksyon.
Okay. Thank you, sir. It's my cue.
Next po si Sir Bomen.
Ayun, magandang umaga at pagbati sa ating tinatalakay na manulat ngayong umaga, si Liza. At natuwa ako nung sinabi ni Sir June na erotikang pambata. Although I was going to mention that, pero hindi ko na talaga babanggitin. Pero yung huling kwento yung nais kong banggitin, yung The Last of the Mermaid. Yung gusto ko ipataktok yung question ng siguro masyadong abstracto minsan, epistemolohiya. Paano nalalaman ang katotohanan o katunayan ng mga bagay, yung mga pamantayan. Dahil sa katunayan ay, halimbawa, kung you have to look at it from both sides. Like, narin yung panig ng mga tao, kaharap ng mga nilalang, na pandagat na yan, at yung sa bahagi naman ng mga ng ating mga mermaid, ano yung kabaliktaran naman? Siyempre, kaalaman ng tao, di umano, mga kwento natin tungkol sa mga nilalang na nakatira sa dagat, katulad nila, ay nagiging, o tinatawag natin fantasya, tinatawag natin folklore. Sa katunayan, interesting, pag magbabasa tayo ng mga travel narratives ng mga Europeo sa bahagi ito ng daigdig. Yung mga naglalakbay dagat, ay marami silang kwento ng mga kakaibang mga nakita raw nila ng mga monster sa dagat. May mga description pa sila ng mga monster na yan. So, pero a lot of it is dismissed as folklore, as in, those aren't really unusual animals of the ocean or features of the ocean. So, yung kaalaman tungkol sa mga pinag-uusapan dito ay parang ang turing natin ay fantasy. Ngayon, yung kabilang tanda naman, paano nila nalalaman nila tungkol sa mga tao, itong mga movements na to? Is it possibly a case of mutual ignorance, mutual folklore, na kumbaga, meron ba sila, pwedeng umabot sa punto na yun, they have, spies roaming among us, mga ang tawag dito yung sa pelikula na yun, si Captain, yung naging pelikula, yung galing sa dagat na powers, sinabi yun.
Aquaman.
Si Aquaman. Sorry. Aquaman, they have spies roaming among us, telling them about our scientists, etc. Well, yun nga yung but it could be very poetically a story of mutual ignorance, of mutual folklore, of not meeting, of not actually not of kasi napakalalim nila sa ilalim ng dagat, halimbawa. So, at ang isa pang posibleng pag-isipan dito, maliban doon sa epistemological aspect, from their side, ay yung usapin ng they've lived for thousands of years, and they could outlive us, their survival doesn't at all depend on us, just like the planet itself, it will outlive if we destroy ourselves, of course, many things will outlive us, and they could be some of those will outlive us. So it's hindi naman one thing about yung anthropocentric idea of the world is that everything comes and goes with mankind or humanity, but that's not the case. So pwede may mga ilang aspect ka pang i-explore doon sa yung paglalatag nito, and I think it does have a lot of potential. I think you should explore epistemological aspects, how they know what they know, and the funny things that we know about them and that we don't accept as truth. So, maraming salamat.
Yes, thank you. I'm just noting that.
Medyo marami pa pong nakapila. Let's have Sir Vlad.
Okay po. Hello, Raisa. Gusto ko lang unang sabihin na fan ako ng mga piyesa na humuhugot din sa ibang mga piyesa bilang translation work yung ilan ko sa mga recent na gawain. At naniniwala din naman ako gaya nabanggit ng mga nauna na pwede ka talaga mag-refashion ng mga bagong trabaho mula sa mga existing na work. At yung iba din siguro ng comments dito ay medyo nakalinya din sa mga nasabi na kung maalala natin doon sa discussion kay Maynard, may nalatag tungkol sa discomfort, may hindi swak, pero sa kaso niya, discomfort mula sa view na maaaring makukuha dun sa mga PSL, discomfort sa predatory relationships, discomfort sa homosexual relationships, and so forth. Dito, may discomfort akong nasisense, nararamdaman sa pagbabasa, pero hindi sa pananaw, kasi parang hindi pa nga ganun kalinaw kung saan pupunta talaga, mas doon sa disenyo. So sa kaso nung trabaho mo, Raisa, yun nga, doon nagmumula yung discomfort. May certain sense na in terms of design, clarity ng prinsipyo, kung paano, saan pupunta ang mga pyesa at paano magkakaroon ng design para supportan itong intention na ito. Medyo madumi pa for me. Madumi, haphazard in terms ng paghugot sa source. Ibig sabihin, parang yun nga, nasabi naman, may bits and pieces na kinukuha. Nasabi naman na parang minsan ikaw yung nahanap ng kwento. Pero dahil doon parang yung clarity ng intention hindi pa fully realized. At in a way, yung voice na ginagamit sa stories, leading yung voice to what reader should get from the piece or the pieces. Usually nga, sa paghugot sa ibang mga pyesa, hindi naman bawal magbura sa source text o culture, pero sana may clarity na intention kung bakit ka magbubura ng certain parts ng source text, source culture. Dito hindi pa masyadong realize nga. Nabanggit ni Eman kanina na nagsesermon, pwede mo itanong sa pinakasimple, bakit siya nagsesermon? Sino ang sinesermonan niya? Ano ang mundo ng mga kwento at magkakaroon ng pagkakataon ang narrator na magsermon? Mas yung kahit yung dramatic situation lang. Halimbawa, may kwento si Severino Reyes na ang sirena ng uli-uli sa Ilog Pasig. Meron siyang situation talaga kung bakit siya kailangan magalit. May lalaking nahulog sa dagat, niligtas ng sirena na mayaman, medyo maraming ginto perlas ng sirena, binigyan niya ng kayamanan ng lalaki. Tapos kailangan lang umuwi ng lalaki kasi hinahanap siya ng nanay. So sabi niya, basta balik ka, hindi bumalik. So nabisit yung sirena at sa dulo ng kwento, hindi lang siya nagsermon, lumabas siya dun sa mangkok ng tubig. So may ganung powers yung sirena. Kahit sang may tubig, pwede siyang sumulpot. At sa dulo, dahil nga sa di nagbalik yun na nga akong babalik, lumabas siya, kinagat pa niya sa leeg yung lalaki. So sinasabi ko ito kasi ito malinaw kung saan nanggaling, saan nagpupunta. Sa kaso ng mga pyesa sa ngayon, may voice na hindi ako sure kung narrator na may halong Raisa o narrator na may ibang mundong ginagalawan at may justification kung bakit siya kailangang mag-essay sa isang banda nung dapat paniwalaan o tanggapin ng mga babasa sa pyesa. Yun nga, may missing in terms of clarity, kaya may seeping, may tumatagas minsan na underlying views na baka hindi naman sinasadya. Nabanggit ni Sir John kanina yung tukol sa parang incest kasi in a way parang kapatid din naman niya yung nagustuhan niya eh. Hindi lang siya pumapatay ng mga buhay na nilalang. So parang may desire siya sa isang kapatid-like na brother-like na figure. May yearning para sa isang tao na magsisweep away sa isang character mula sa isang pangit na sitwasyon at nakaparallel pa dun sa pag-aasawa ng foreigner na narrative na familiar tayo sa Pilipinas. May isang aspect tungkol sa pagsuko ng virginity bilang isang regalo o gift na at siguro sa pinakamaliit, debatable, parang ganoon. Sa isang banda, last part na ito, nasabi naman ni Raisa na yung process niya kasi, ayun nga, hinahanap siya minsan o nahahanap ka ng mga pyesa. Hindi ikaw yung active na nag-iisip ano ba yung punto ng lahat, pero mas may situation, mukhang magandang explore. At baka nga nasa proseso ka pa nung pag-assess ng, eventually, pag nagkaroon ako ng body of work tungkol sa mga mito, ano yung magiging tuhog nito mga nakatagpo o mga kwentong nakatagpo sa iyo o sa akin? Baka in-explore pa yung mga possibilities patungo doon sa hinahanap kanina na ultimately ano ba yung valuation o value ng mga bagong pyesa na ito, itong mga derivative o works na derived from existing works. At kung para saan at saan dapat pupunta yung mga paglihis, yung deviations sa source text. Tawag dito sa translation studies poetics. So, totoo naman na pwede yung poetics, yung principle sa kung bakit ka gumagawa ng mga bagong mito, malalaman mo lang kapag napagtabi-tabi mo na yung lahat ng mga bagong mito na nakatagpo sa'yo. So, ang point ko, okay lang naman kung hindi pa fully realize sa ngayon. Baka kasi yung process mo ay baliktad. So, sulat muna, pagtabi-tabihin, saka ako aaralin. So, yun lang muna. Excited ako dun sa mga iba pang trabaho na lalabas mula dito.
Thank you, Sir Vlad. Butch?
I don't know much about YA fiction, but I have a simple question about language in this piece. Yung tinutukoy ko dito yung those who have loved and lost. Kasi napansin ko that I was spotting words like trending, growing viral, coach the team. Kaya may tanong ako tungkol sa ano ba yung ground rules dito sa paggamit ng lengguwahe, sa mga rehistro ng lengguwahe. It seems to me that we are hindi ko mapagsama yung salitang growing viral with the forests and that kind of almost mythic quality that you start out with, and then it slides into almost the cartoonish. I mean, I'm prepared to accept na ganun, kung sabihin mong ganun talaga yun sa mga bata ngayon. Pero in my old man's mind, para akong nanonood ng Power Rangers ba, ganyan. Na naghalo-halo na yung mga yung mga mundo. Kaya that's just a bothersome note for me. Yung paano sinusustain yung this aura that you're creating, or if you're deliberately breaking it by bringing in these 21st century terms. Yun lang.
Next po si Ma'am Luna, and then Sir Eugene, and then Ma'am Jing. Kung kaya po natin ipasok sa oras. Okay pa.
Hi, Raisa. I love the collection, and I think I know why. Gusto ko yung whimsy. Gusto ko yung breath of imagination. Gusto ko yung may gaan eh. May parang paglalaro na nasa loob ng mga kwento na takot akong mamatay sa intervention natin. Kasi ang naalala ko rito si Ursula Le Guin na gumagamit ng mga Native American tales. Ipinapasok talaga niya yon sa kanyang fiction. Halimbawa, maglalagay siya ng isang wolf character, tapos mapupunta yung bata sa isang plane na ayon sa mga Native American Indians, ito yung dream time nila. Tapos natanggapin ko lang yung storya at natutuwa ako dun sa paghahabi. May ganong aspect yung storytelling ni Raisa na siguro naghanap din ako ng kwentong ganito na ano lang yung magaan, pantakas. At pasensya na kung naging vocal ako dun sa takas, escape na salita. Kasi may bahagi rin yung kwento mo na ganon. At alam ko na nanggagaling din ako sa tradisyon ng mga maikling kwento na kung saan ang value ng pagtakas ay hindi tinitignan bilang maganda at negatibo dahil nakakapagpabulag ito ng mga realities ng ating kasaysayan, ganyan, ng ating lipunan at iba pa. Pero kung magiging totoo ako dun sa talagang naging dating ng storya mo sa akin, binabasa ko siya bilang trace ng isang imagination na galing sa pagbabasa ng iba't ibang mga sources. And I don't see any problem with mixing it, nor do I have a problem with yung hahanapin yung tama at wasto na attitude dun sa pinagmulan. After all, you are the storyteller here. And you are accountable for what you said or what you told, diba? Parang ganun ko lang tinitignan yun eh. At ang audience na nakikita ko ring pagbabahagi na mo nito ay mga young adult ng ating panahon. Siguro ang anak ko sa isang mas batang panahon na kung saan gusto ko siyang madala dun sa mundo ng folklore at pansamantala siguro isususpend ko na muna ang kung tama ang mga references sa soul book, sa tribes, sa narrative studies. Kasi ang punto ko, kailangan ko munang ma-enjoy ang mga kwentong ito. And for me, nag-succeed ka doon. Yun lang muna. Okay na ako.
Thank you po, Ma'am Luna. Sir Eugene, tapos po si Ma'am Jing.
Nabibilisan ko lamang ito aking mga tanong. Una ay, ano ba ang responsableng, tanto para sa lahat, no? Ano po ba ang responsableng paggamit ng ating mitolohiya at ng ating folklore? Alin po ba sa mga sources natin, dahil isang katutak ito, no? Alin dito ang opisyal na bersyon na pwede nating gamitin? Tingin ko rin, kailangan din nating piliin yung mga bersyon na mas responsableng kinuha, no? Dahil yung mga naunang antolohiya ng mga folklore natin ay irresponsableng kinuha ng mga guro, no, ng panitikan. Halimbawa, yung Philippine Popular Tales noong panahon ng Amerikano ay isang proyekto ng teacher na pinakuha niya ang mga estudyante niya ng sem break ng mga folklore kung saan-saan at tinipon at ginawang libro. So ito ba ay isang responsableng pagsasaantolohiya ng mga folktale? So mag-ingat din tayo, Fansler, tama, no? Mag-ingat tayo doon. Pangatlo ay, kailangan bang humingi ng permiso sa mga sagradong tekstong ito? Kasi maraming mga indigenous group o people na ayaw nilang isinasa publiko o isinasamadla ang kanilang mga kwento. May kaibigan ako, si Will Ortiz, meron siyang thesis niya to. Sabi ko, ipalathala mo. O sabi niya, nangako siya sa kanyang pinagkunan na hindi niya ito ipapalathala. So meron ba tayong dapat na sundin na mga alituntunin, no, kaugnay sa responsableng paggamit at pag-retell, muling pagkasalaysay ng mga kwentong ito? At pang-apat ay, ano ba ang hangganan ng retelling? No, meron ba tayong kapangyarihan na paglaruan ang mga sagradong tekstong ito buhat sa ating mga katutubo o sa ating mga ninuno? Yun lamang po.
Thank you, Sir Eugene. And then let's have Ma'am Jing. Ma'am Jing.
Okay. I have a question for you, Raisa. I want to know whether your project is actually primarily the retelling of myths, or do you see yourself primarily just as a speculative fictionist? Because you know that essay that Christine mentioned that I had written in the late 90s pa yun, yung New Tales for Old. I was studying the work of a number of Filipino women writers in English who were already doing speculative fiction before that term became well known. And they were not for young adults, they were simply included in their collections of stories. And they were not retelling myths, they were telling modern fairy tales. So in that essay, my sources were all Western because Filipino critics, literary critics, were not studying the retelling of our old tales. No? So I was treating them through the lens of Western literary criticism, Western critics who had studied the fairy tale, the modern fairy tale. And that was what they were doing. So these writers are Nerissa Guevara, Natasha Gamalinda, Mylene Paterno. You mentioned the mermaid myth of Mylene. It was not based on our myths. She just took the figure of the mermaid who was in that the cartoon Little Mermaid and decided to subvert it. No, but she didn't rely on the myths about the Sirena. So it was a different kind of project. No. So I was wondering, in your case, Raisa, since you said that you were being a mother and having a job and all that, you can't do a lot of research. If you are inclined towards speculative fiction, maybe you might consider just telling modern tales, modern fairy tales, urban fairy tales even. There are several pioneers in that field, among them Hilda Cordero Fernando, although she did study our myths, but her own fairy tales were very different. They were completely imagined. For example, the Dust Monster. Modern fairy tale yun, ano? So the level of each day's need. So, baka yun ang gusto mong puntahan. Kasi itong retelling of old myths yata, lalo na ngayon where, there's so much awareness of the ethics of appropriating cultures that we are not very familiar with and so on, you're treading on very dangerous grounds. But if you do, like the daughter of Jimmy, si Sian Abad, she has told a lot of fairy tales, modern fairy tales. The inspiration is not so much our own indigenous myths, which we as urban writers in English may not really be very familiar with. No? The inspiration is more the modern fairy tale tellers of the West. Like, for example, A.S. Bayat, Jeanette Winterson, they kind of invent fairy tales. No? So anyway, that's just a suggestion. Although I actually appreciated your stories very much. Just like Luna, hindi ko naman tinanong kung is this faithful to the original, is this subverting the original. Nagandahan lang ako sa kanila as tales. Yun lang.
Thank you po, Ma'am Jing. Sir Charleston, yun na po ang ating last.
Do we give it back to Raisa para for her final words on the do we have time? May time ba si Raisa
Yes.
para sumagot? Sige, yun na yun. Okay. Sige, si Raisa na ang huling.
Sorry, I just have to do a mom thing. I think the pervading question is, yes, what am I writing them for? Okay, well, first, I think I just really connected as a person, depending on the situation, with a certain myth, something that I read, and sometimes I wanted to challenge something. Okay. And these weren't exactly intended as young adult. I mean, I was just writing them, although I do tend to do things through a young adult lens. I don't know why. Maybe I'm stuck at the age of 18. Oh, and the YA now does have sex, so that's okay. And well, let's see. Yeah. Oh, there's this series that my daughter used to be addicted to. This YA series called The Goddess Girls. Okay, kind of annoyed me. There are basically Greek goddesses, and not goddesses like Pandora, okay, Persephone. They are, they sound like regular American high school girls. They go to a school. Well, it's kind of fun and funny. I don't know why I find it annoying. But I can see the value also of getting young people interested in mythical figures, in myths, and somehow being able to relate to these.
Nagkaroon lang po ng internet disconnection. Hintay lang po natin makabalik si Miss Raisa.
What happened here? Okay, thank you.
I can hear you now, Ma'am Raisa. Please continue.
Please, can you just soothe him or something? I just need one more minute. Okay, there's Daddy. Okay. Well, that's it basically. So guess I still have to think about why am I doing this for a wider audience? Is it just that to expose them to these figures and get them interested in seeking out the source, which in some cases is very hard to find. Okay, as I said with the Go-like, it's not managing that I can't do the research. Of course, I have to do it mostly on the internet. I do have access to the Ateneo Library online from my husband. It's just, I guess I don't know yet where to go exactly, what sources to go exactly, but you did mention some books, all of you, so I'll take a look at those and try to look for some more sources. See, my feeling is that I want to respect the source when possible. I also want to know what it is really about before I start, because subversion's a kind of argument. It's not right, I think, to argue with something when you haven't heard the complete side of it. Okay, but thank you very much for your comments, and I'll still consider them and how I can use them to bring more richness to the project. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po at pagbati, Ms. Raisa. Thank you din po, Sir Charleston. Sa ngayon po ay maglalaan muna tayo ng mga 20-minute break po upang makapagpahinga po na ang lahat. Magkita-kita tayong muli mamayang 10:40 para po sa susunod na sesyon.